Under the cold morning light of the Pacific, the naval base buzzed with its usual rhythm, boots striking concrete, orders echoing, the distant thrum of helicopters slicing through salt-heavy air. But that morning, everything felt different. Because that was the day the Admiral met her. Asterisk, asterisk, what city are you watching from today? If this story resonated with you, hit subscribe for more real stories about extraordinary people. Asterisk, she had arrived quietly, almost ghost-like, in a press uniform, with no visible insignia except for a small silver pendant tucked beneath her collar. Most assumed she was just another recruit, maybe a transfer from a logistics unit. She didn't speak much, only nodded politely when addressed. Her eyes, however, told a different story, calm, unwavering, carrying the weight of something no one dared to name. Her name was Lieutenant Kara Hale. At least that's what the paper said. The men noticed her right away. Not because she was beautiful, though she was in a sharp, understated way, but because she didn't seem to flinch under the constant barrage of military arrogance that new arrivals faced. She moved with precision, as though every step had been measured against an invisible rhythm of discipline and silence. On the second day, the base mess hall became a theater of whispers. Someone claimed she had served with a classified unit in the Middle East. Someone else said she'd been demoted for refusing an order. But no one knew for sure. And on a naval base, mystery was fuel for cruelty. They mocked her. Quietly at first, then louder. She moves like she's seen combat, one joked. Yeah, probably from a simulator, another laughed. She didn't respond. She just kept eating, eyes locked on her tray, posture perfect. The laughter stopped when the Admiral entered. Admiral Marcus Rourke, a legend on the West Coast Fleet. Decorated, battle-hardened, the kind of man whose presence demanded attention. He spotted the unfamiliar face immediately. You, he said, walking over, boots ringing against the metal floor. You new here? Yes, sir, she replied, standing straight. He studied her for a moment. Lieutenant Kara Hale, he said, reading from his tablet. Special assignment from command. Interesting. Haven't heard of you. No reason you should have, sir. A few of the men chuckled quietly. The Admiral smirked. Confident one, aren't you? Just honest, sir. He leaned closer, his tone playfully sharp. Tell me, Lieutenant, what's your kill count? The room froze. It was a cruel joke, the kind meant to humiliate. A test of ego. She didn't blink. Her eyes met his, calm as still water. Officially or unofficially, sir? The smirk faded. A beat of silence passed. Even the air seemed to tighten. The Admiral's voice dropped. Officially. She inhaled slowly, her voice quiet but unwavering. 127 confirmed. Forks clattered. Conversation stopped. The Admiral's jaw tensed. And unofficially? She paused, eyes distant for a fraction of a second. Enough to make the number meaningless, sir. For the first time in years, Admiral Rourke had no words. Later that day, whispers flooded the base. Some said she was lying. Others swore they'd seen her name buried deep in special ops files. And one old chief, a man with a scar across his throat, muttered that he'd seen her once, in Afghanistan, when his team was pinned down and a lone shadow had cleared an entire compound in under 7 minutes. But Kara never spoke about it. The next week, the Admiral called her into his office. The air between them was charged with something unspoken, respect, perhaps, or unease. I checked with command, he began. There's no record of you. Not in any database accessible to me. Who are you really? She looked him in the eye. Someone who used to be a ghost, sir. He frowned. That's not an answer. No, sir, she said softly. It's the only one I can give. There was something in her tone, not arrogance, not fear, just quiet exhaustion. He leaned back. You realize I could have you detained for withholding information. You could, she said, but you won't. Why's that? Because you already know, she said, her gaze steady. You've seen enough men die to recognize the ones who've lived through hell. Rourke studied her, then stood slowly. You were with Shadow Unit 7, weren't you? Kara didn't answer, but her silence was confirmation enough. Shadow Unit 7, a ghost division that officially didn't exist, credited with high-value extractions, zero recognition, zero survivors. Rourke exhaled. We lost contact with them 3 years ago. Everyone was presumed Kia. Everyone else was, she said. He turned away, the weight of her words pressing against the room. Why come here? Why now? Because, sir, she said, her voice faint but resolute. I'm tired of fighting wars no one admits exist. He looked back at her, not as an officer, not as a subordinate, but as someone carrying the kind of truth that could break a man's faith in his own command. Days turned into weeks. Kara's presence began to shift something in the base. The mockery stopped. Recruits began to seek her advice. She trained silently, methodically, often alone before sunrise, her movements so efficient they bordered on artistry. She never bragged, never corrected rumors, never explained why her reflexes seemed almost inhuman. Then came the incident. An early morning drill went wrong. A live-fire exercise malfunctioned, leaving 3 recruits trapped in the line of fire when an automated turret jammed. Chaos erupted. Officers scrambled. Alarms blared. But before anyone could reach the field, Kara was already moving. Without orders, without hesitation, she sprinted across open ground, rolled through the dust, and reached the control panel. She didn't duck, didn't flinch. She dismantled the firing module with surgical precision, her fingers moving faster than anyone could track. When the smoke cleared, the recruits were alive. Kara stood still, covered in dust, eyes sharp and steady. The Admiral was among the first to reach her. What the hell was that? She looked at him quietly. Experience, sir. He didn't press further. He couldn't. The truth was clear. No ordinary officer could have done what she did. That night, Rourke sat alone in his office, staring at her personnel file. Empty lines, redacted sections, classified attachments he couldn't open, even with his clearance. He poured himself a drink he didn't finish. When she knocked on his door, he wasn't surprised. I assume you found what you were looking for, she said softly. He turned toward her. I'm not sure what that is anymore. Then maybe it's time to stop looking for ghosts, she said. He studied her face, the calm of someone who had seen too much and carried it all without asking for forgiveness. Why tell me any of this? Because I need you to understand something, she said. The war you think you command, it's not the only one happening. She placed something on his desk, a small worn trident ring. Rourke's breath caught. This belonged to... Yes, she said. Commander Leland. He didn't make it out. Rourke stared at the ring. You were the one who recovered it. I was the one who buried him, she replied. Silence stretched between them. What do you want from me? He asked. Nothing, she said. Just a promise that you'll remember the ones who fought where no flags flew. Her eyes softened, the first sign of vulnerability he'd seen. Because we remember you. The next morning, she was gone. Her quarters were empty, her records erased once again, as if she had never existed. But on the Admiral's desk, the trident ring remained, next to a handwritten note that simply said, "For those who never came home." Weeks later, a sealed envelope arrived from command. Inside, a single sheet read, Lieutenant Kara Hale, reinstated to active covert service, Fleet Shadow Division. The Admiral folded the paper quietly, staring out the window where the sun bled over the sea. He whispered to himself, unofficially or officially, Lieutenant, you're the deadliest ghost I've ever met. He slipped the ring into his pocket, stood tall, and saluted the horizon. Because some warriors don't vanish when forgotten. They simply return to the shadows, carrying the weight of every life they've taken and every one they've saved. And somewhere out there, beneath another sky, Kara Hale walked again, unseen, unnamed, but never gone. What did this story make you feel? Where are you watching from? Subscribe to Soul Relief Stories for more real stories that heal the heart.